Okay, everybody, welcome to Step into the Akash. First of all, I'm honored and delighted that you're all here spending your evening, afternoon, day, wherever you are in the world. So thank you for coming and spending time with me in the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records are something that I love and adore. I've been working in the space for since 2016 when I was first introduced to them. And when and I had no idea, like maybe some of you. And in fact, let me know in the chat. Do you know, have you, before today, what do you know about the records? Have you worked in them before? I heard about them. I had a reading in them. And everything changed. And there, this is no exaggeration. I was going along, I was quite happily following my path. And after I had a reading in the Akashic Records, not knowing what they were or what they could do or really anything, apart from this kind of sense of something's going to happen. And I received some guidance in there. And some of the guidance in there was, Melissa, you should be working in the Akashic Records. Now you can imagine what came up for me then. Little baby me going, huh? Me? What? But never one to never one to question higher guidance. I just kind of let it sit to the side. And what was very interesting is one of the things I discovered in there was my teacher's path. Until that moment, I never considered myself as a teacher. It was nothing that even came into my awareness. Looking back, I can see how the path was forming, but it wasn't something that I had considered. But it came up. Some work happened. I had some understanding and some clarity around this. And within 3 weeks, I took my first Reiki teacher training. Now, I'd been Reiki trained and a Reiki master for nearly 10 years at this point, and everything started to unfold. A few weeks later, I was taking my first classes. My teacher invited me. She didn't know that I'd had this session, but she invited me to start teaching the psychic development classes that I was going to. There was somebody else just like randomly came into my life and asked me if I could start teaching a workshop with her, someone I'd never met before, and just suddenly appeared. And so I realized in that moment that there was something going on here before what I knew. It was almost like as my mental clarity started to catch up with what had happened, there were forces beyond me. Now, what you may or may not know about me is I'm a right geek. I love all the things. So you talk to me about quantum, you talk to me about quantum physics, you talk to me about the law of attraction, you talk to me about energy work, you talk to me about healing, you talk to me about guidance, the angels. I am a geek. I love it all and I'm like obsessed. If you know anything about human design, I'm a 5-1, which apparently is like right set up for me being a right geek. And it's true. So I went and tried to find out everything that I possibly could about the Akashic Records. Another one line. I love that one line. I went to find out everything that I could around the Akashic Records. And the biggest learning that I had all happened through the work that I started to do in there. So I spent, I'm not sure I quite recommend this, but I spent many a day, many an hour, and even many a nighttime sleep. Don't do that. In the Akashic Records, and I discovered a lot. And through the years, I've been experimenting. I've done many a course. I've worked with many other Akashic Records leaders, readers, and teachers, always for moving into that space with full disclosure of what it is that I'm doing and that I've been teaching and guiding and working in that space for a long time. But I wanted to discover what was possible. And so last year I put on my first Akashic Records training, which was Soul School, and it was absolutely incredible. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that journey a little bit later. But for now, I would love to speak to you about what they are and what is so magical about them and what it is that, because I know many of you are readers. Give me like a one in the comment if you're like a reader or a healer or a guide or a coach or a therapist or in this kind of field. Give me a two if you're like brand new. You're like, I don't know. I just like the words. I like the imagery. Let's shout out for the imagery because Guna did all of this for me and it's absolutely incredible. Um, okay, so many of you. And what I am super excited about is, and why I'm so like, oh, is because I know that when I first discovered the records, like everything changed. And for some of you, I feel like this could be that pivotal moment as well. So that's why I'm all like, well. So I feel very excited for all of us. So a couple brand new, a little bit of a mermaid, love a mermaid. You're an SRT, so you work with Soul Records. Okay, incredible, incredible, incredible. Okay. So tonight we're really going to be working in that clarity, that understanding, that transformation, and maybe even start to understand why it is that the Akashic Records have been calling you. Let me know, put a two, no, put a three, because I gave you a two. Put a three in there if you felt that. If there was something, maybe from what you saw of me, maybe from what has brought you here, that something thinks maybe I just went to see Moana, so I'm all about the call. That maybe you felt this kind of pull. There was something there that maybe you feel like the Akashic Records have been calling you, and how they can change our lives. Amazing. Okay. I'd like to officially begin with us all just coming into state. So if you will with me, just bring your hand either to your heart, to your stomach, or to your legs, and just take a really nice breath. It doesn't have to be deep, doesn't have to be any way. Just a nice breath into you. And as you take this deep breath into you, just really connecting with the energy of the space where you are. So in the room, or maybe you're outside, just wherever you are, the chair, the space, the home. And just really connect and feel where you are, where's up, where's down, where's forward and back. Maybe even how your body sits on the chair or on the bed, wherever you are. And then, whether you're watching this live or on the replay, just feel where you are in this group, because here we are gathered, a beautiful bunch of people, of explorers, like-hearted, like-minded. And just notice where you are. Maybe you imagine there's a circle. And if you have been in the Telegram group, you will know that I have opened the records of this space, of Into the Akash, of this training. And so I'm just going to invite you, and don't worry if you don't even know how to do this. I'm just going to invite you to connect in with that space, connect in with the records. So just imagining whatever you know the records to be, or feel the records may be. I just want to invite you to connect in with that sacred space. And whilst you are there, I want you to set an intention. So, an intention for this work, an intention for this evening or this session. And maybe even an intention for your work in the Akashic Records, whether that is just for today or whether that is beyond. And then when you're ready, you can come back. And just feel how you feel. Just notice if you feel any different. And when we're doing this work, it is really important to be grounded because we go into a space that is far and wide, that is deep and strong. I feel electric. I love that. And so, whenever we're doing this work and wherever we're even contemplating working in the records, something that is very important is that we have this space of groundedness. Because I want to preface this with, yes, the Akashic Records are this beautiful spiritual realm, and yes, they are the place where, if you like, an aspect of our soul resides. But and it can be very tempting to kind of go in this space, as I will. Full disclosure, when at the beginning, I was like, I'm just going to stay in here. It's amazing. Um, However, we are here as human beings on this earth now for a reason. Like, if we wanted to be in spirit, we'd be in spirit, that's for sure. It's quite easy to be up there in spirit. But somehow, for some reason, we've chosen this human journey in these crazy times. I mean, especially think of the last 4 years of craziness we've been going through. And so I don't believe in coincidence. That's one of the things that I put aside a while ago. And so if we are here, what is super important for me is that this work that we're doing, we're bringing back into the human, we're bringing back into the earth. And we can only do that, or we can do that best if we are grounded, if we are centered, if we are here and we are present. And our job as humans, which the Akashic Records on their own can't do, right? Spirit on their own can't do. The angelics on their own can't do. The spirit guides on their own can't do. What we can do as humans is actually bridge that gap. And if you are here, I think you're one of the people that are here to help bridge that gap. And so this is what we're going to start to do. So I'm going to give you a brief history on the records because, well, not really history, a briefing. There we go. That's the word on the records, because I think some of you are pretty new. Some of you already know. But even if you already know, I might drop something new because my experience and my understanding and my evolution of the records has definitely changed from everything that I began to understand in 2016. Even what I knew 12 months ago has changed. And actually, in the last 3 months, I personally have felt a deepening and a change in the space. So just be open. I also want to offer this, that everything that I'm sharing is from my level of understanding today. This may change tomorrow. Things might be different. So this is my level of understanding today. It may be different to what you already know. It may feel good. And just to take what resonates with you, be open to, to whatever comes through for you, and question everything. I'm always up for that. So question everything. Take what feels good for you, leave behind and whatever doesn't, and do feel free to ask questions if there's something that doesn't feel really clear. So, what are the records? Well, what we know them to be, or what we've always known them to be, is this energetic space that records everything that we have ever known as a soul. So, that's everything that we have ever said, done, been, experienced, believed, understood. Even every thought, every action, and every deed is said to be held in these records. So you can imagine that there's this energetic space. Some people describe it as a library. My experience has always been more like a super highway of information. It has always been presented to me as something very dynamic. You can imagine it like the internet, that it's this, like your cookies, right? Everything is recorded and everything is logged, but not just the bits that you experience and that, not just the website that you actually end up to, but the thing that sits behind, like the thing, that's like prompted you to search whatever it is that you're searching, and the thing that has then led you after the actions that you've taken after. Everything is in there. And this realm is held by guides, teachers. They've traditionally been known as the lords, masters, and teachers of the records. Now, certainly when I was introduced to the records, and a lot of things that I began to understand about them from what I read was that they are this library and they hold this information, and we go back and we read them, right? Does that feel true for many of you? And that I think certainly was true for a pretty long time. But what I understand about the records through the hundreds, probably even thousands of records that I've seen, if we keep the group work into there as well, is that they're more than that. And the Akashic records are this living, breathing, energetic space that holds not just what happened, not just who we are, and not just who we were. It also holds everything that we are now, everything that we like, everything in our auric field and beyond, plus the future in terms of possibility. The records are, as I can see in the chat, they are this field of consciousness and they are very much living and breathing. It's there's nothing static about them, because I think when we think about a library, we might start thinking, well, I take the book and I read it and it's all there. um how we can understand it from a book is like, do you remember those create your own adventure books? Did anyone used to read those when you were a kid? Right, so it's like in the book, or maybe we imagine it more like a game, like a computer game, that in the programming is every single possibility that's available to us. And in the memory stick, it knows the actions that we actually took. It knows the skills that we actually developed. It knows the gems that we collected along the way and what, items we have in our box. And it contains every possible future. Like, it knows, like, if you who's played Tomb Raider, right? You can go left or right. You can go either way. I'm so old school. I know there's newer games, but I don't play them. So we can turn left or right, right? And the computer knows that we have that as a possibility. Like the tree of life in the movie Avatar, in many ways, yes. Now, this concept of the records as a book, right, as a library, I think was true for a long period of time. And I saw this question come up in the Telegram group. Why why are the Akashic records becoming available to us? Now, I think in the past, who here agrees with me that in the last 10 years, 20 years, even 40 years, the level of consciousness has kind of gone from here to like, right, big heights. And you look at the kids now, right? Just let me know, yes or no, in the chat. Even the kids now are coming in like a complete different level of awareness and understanding. And so I think back then, when we were where we were, the Akashic records were held, not, yes, by the Lords, Masters, Teachers, loved ones of the records. And there was only a select few people that could go in and read them, because in this space, there's so much, there is so much information. Imagine a diary. Imagine you wrote your diary. You wouldn't want like anyone just going in and reading it, right? It would be like mortifying. So you're not going to want just anyone to go in. And I think back in the day, from the level of consciousness we were in, it had to be really guarded and kept. And they were used very much as this source of information. I go back, I understand. And we look at the likes of Edgar Casey, who's one of the first people to have been understood to be an Akashic Records reader, if you like. He was going back and he was understanding what was happening and then gaining insight to help in the present future, in the present moment. Very much for he was to do with health and understanding. Now, what's been happening is our level of awareness has grown and our level of consciousness has grown and our level of vibration has grown. Now, this sacred space that holds everything that we have ever been, every thought we've ever had, every deed we have ever deeded, I don't know what the word is, every deed that we have ever acted upon, there we go, is held in this space. And it's what's quite special about it. Again, this question came up around, well, what's the difference? The difference is that in this space, there is zero judgment, like none. Literally, you could have done anything. And I mean anything, right? Anything. And I've seen a lot. You could have done anything. And the way that it's presented by the guides, lords, masters, teachers is this is what happened. And that's it. This is what happened. There's no, this was good, this was bad. There was no, now you're in the naughty book. Now you're on Santa's naughty list. There's none of that. It's just, this is what happened. And one of the biggest understandings that I have gained from working in the records is this understanding that we're always doing the best we can with what we've got. And and that's a concept. And sometimes you're like, I'm not quite sure how they were doing the best they could with what they've got. But time and time again, when I'm in this space, when I'm in human, I'm like, I would not do that. That's very judgy. How dare they? In the Akashic Records space, it comes to this point of we are all doing the best we can with what we've got. So they're held in this sacred container. And what has in the past, I think that there was only perhaps a certain amount of people that could hold that and do with it what the records maybe had in mind for us. But so many of us are growing in this consciousness and growing in as healers, as guides, as people who want to do more for the world, who are coming into this understanding that actually the base level of our vibration is acceptance. So if you know anything about the map of consciousness, yeah, the vibrational scales, you can look at David Hawkins' work on that, or you can look at Abraham Hicks's work on that, that we have this vibrational scale, and that when we get to this level of acceptance, things start to move and start to change. I think more of us are coming into that. And I think, and from how I see this, my understanding is that the Akashic records, they were never locked, but the password to open them is a certain level of vibration. And I think more and more of us are reaching that level of vibration. Because if we're sitting down here, imagine gaining the access to your diary, what we can do with that. But if I come to that as somebody who wants to expand consciousness, who wants to create a better space, who wants to bring healing and understanding and unity and, you know, all these incredible things that that we want to bring into the world, well, then reading the diary with permission, well, it can bring a whole heap of understanding, right? Well, now I know you. Now I can help you. Now I can meet you where you are, and then we can move forward rather than judge and bring you down. Give me a yes in the chat if this is resonating and making sense. And so the records are opening up for us, which gives us this incredible opportunity for the right people. Because somebody's asked me in the past, well, are the records available to everybody? And the answer is yes and no. Because the records, if we think of it as a definition, the records are this space that contains everything, right? So it's if you imagine like the what they called the people in the courtrooms that type everything that's happening, right? Imagine one of them, they're sitting on your shoulder. It's like everything that's happening and everything that's happening in your brain and all the stuff is all happening. So everybody is recording in the records all of the time. And so if we think of it like that, then everyone has access into the records because we're all recording things. And we might think about, this is where my brain goes on a random Tuesday. Where do our thoughts come from? I used to think when I was a child that we had like filing cabinets in our brain, and that we'd open the filing cabinet and out would pop I'm not sure that's true anymore. In fact, that has been disproven. And from, again, the work that I've done in the records, I start to understand that we live in this field, that we're all here in this field, and the thoughts that we pick from, because there are 100,000 billion thoughts that we could possibly pick from somewhere, that they're coming from this space, and they're being presented to us from two ways. One, what we're putting in there in the moment, and two, what's already stored in there. Okay. Now, what's stored in there is not just what we've put in there. See, Ali, you're one step ahead. Um, it's not just what's stored in there. It also contains everything from the collective, because the Akashic records, we have a record. You, me, we all have a record, and they're all held by these guides. So I see them as they each have like a gatekeeper, like a watchman standing there, that only I can go into mine, only you can go into yours unless you give me the key. I can't, and even I've read a record. I can't just jump into yours because I'm like, oh, I'm very interested to see what Olga is doing. I'm just going to jump in. But if you're like, hey, Mel, let's go and discover, then we can go in together. So we each have our individual records, but they sit in this massive field in the Akash, right? And the collective consciousness, the higher consciousness, the fear consciousness, the collective unconscious, all of these things that we hear about all sit in this field. What's different about the Akashic records is this thing of non-judgment, that everything's there and they're held in this space. And what I'm seeing happening now, this blew my mind. The Akashic records are recording, right? The guidance that I got, and this was very recently, is that they're not just recording anymore. The Akashic records are no longer a space where they're just recording. And I was like, well, what does that even mean? We can turn off the Zoom recording then. Yes, because it's all in there. And do you know what? If we're really proficient, we can go in there and we can discover everything. But that would, like, you'd go nuts. So we need an intention. Anyway, they're not just recording. Now they are, as our level of consciousness is rising and we're moving into this space, now they're becoming an access point. And why is this important? Well, if here we have a field that offers us this understanding of who we are as humans and who we are as souls individually and as a collective, well, now we can come in and meet this space, come into this space and start to receive the wisdom and the guidance and the healing that this space holds. The Akashic records are not just about past lives, because this is something I get over and over. Well, why do we want to go into the past? Because the past happened, and we're concerned with what's happening now and where we're going. And yes, this is true. And so we are meeting, and we're having this ability to enter into the records so that we can understand what it is that's feeding our thoughts, so that we can understand what it is that is feeding our emotions, so we can understand then what it is that is feeding our actions, so that we can come into this level of acceptance, and not just into this level of acceptance. Because again, if you know about the vibrational field and the vibrational scale, that as we reach that tipping point, well, then things start to accelerate up. And this is literally our path to enlightenment and our path to understanding. So now we're able to move into this record. Again, not everyone. Can everyone go into the records? Yes, because everyone is every day moving in and out. I'm putting things in and things are coming out. And you know, when you have those little like insights, when you have those little kind of psychic moments, those memories pop up, or even when you're like, oh, I knew, like, what's the answer? And you're like trying to find it. We're not going through the filing cabinet in our minds. We're going into ether. We're going into this space. and we're able to pick it out. But not everyone is able to do is really move into the the sacredness of the records, which I know to be the aspect of it that really gives us the healing and the understanding and that guidance that helps us understand who we were, where we've gone, and not just the traumas, like the magic, the experience, the times that the things that we overcame, the experiences that we had, the kindness that we've given to others, the kindness that we've received, the lessons that we've learned through lifetimes. That as we can go in and begin to understand that, we can activate it into our now. And the things that are there that are holding us back, that have been, keeping us in the loops, that have been keeping us unsure, that have been how I now understand it, guiding us through fear, right? Guiding us through safety. If you think about our energy centers, guiding us through our first couple. Am I safe in the world? Yeah, am I safe to create? Is power safe in my hands? These kinds of questions. That we're moving into, that many of us pull from that space. And so we're making our decisions from fear, from lack, from scarcity, from what if. Because if something happened in the past that told us that living from the heart isn't safe, that expressing our truth isn't safe, that seeing the invisible realms, that knowing more, that drawing the wisdom, that connecting to source or higher guidance, whatever that is for you, isn't safe, well, actually, our number one job as humans is to survive. Because if we don't survive, we'll be a spirit. And then we're back there shouting down at our humans, going, listen to me, I've sent you 7,000 signs and you're not listening. I'm sure that was me. I'm sure that when I'm not in a body, I'm a spirit guide up there because I'm like, come on, I hear ya. And I feel that plight. Okay, so this is very necessary. And how do we heal from those kinds of traumas from past lives? This is the ultimate question, because we can, if we can go back and understand what happened, and not just be guided by that fear and that lack and that scarcity and that what if and that mistrust and all of the things that, quite frankly, sit in the collective and sit in the power dynamics that we know, and they're not power, they're force dynamics, and actually begin to, number one, remember what I said, acceptance, right? Begin to first go, hey, this is what happened, and what happened. I'm not really one to change a lot of things in the records. Can you? Yes. Should you? That's another question. And it's something that we talk about a lot in Soul School, my Akashic Records training, because just because you can doesn't mean you should, don't know. But when we can go back and witness this from the space of non-judgment, from the space of compassion, from the space of understanding, and from this space of I was doing the best I can with what I had at the time. I wouldn't act like that now because I have a different level of understanding. But when we understand it, when we really look at it from that space and from that point of view, what it starts to do is change the energetic imprint that's held in there. So let me give you a visual. Let me try and give you a visual on that. One of the things that I do in the records a lot is I ask the big questions. Because, by the way, it's not just a space for healing, it's also a space for guidance. And it's where I go and I'm like, I do not understand. Give me some information. I want to know. And they showed me this really incredible, I suppose it's an analogy on how this stuff works. So when something happens, when a an incident happens, whatever it is, good, bad, in between, a score happens in a sentence happens in your book, right? Melissa fell over, right? So I fell over. And that's one thing. If I have a big emotion around it, so like it really hurt, for example, or it was really funny, or it made me really sad, or somebody did it to me, so I felt that anger, that energy, so that like feeling thought increases it. So now just from a score, now I have like a paragraph or maybe even a page. And then the actions that follow. Did I get over it straight away? Probably not. Now I'm telling all my friends about it. Now I'm scared to go down the thing. Now, my body's had a response. If the energy's not moved through my body, if you know anything about trauma, is where trauma is, right? Is something happens and we don't know how to cope with it. So we create this loop in our body, right? So what's happening from an Akashic Records point of view is it's looping and it keeps on scoring that score in the book. Yeah, fear, scared, hurt, pain, don't trust anybody, right? Whatever it is, this person pushed me over, I'm not safe, right? And we start telling ourselves these stories, or our body is bringing this emotion. And so the how do I say it? So the thought is like one line, the emotion is like a, a, a paragraph or a chapter, and the action is a book. Does this make sense? So like different aspects of who we are contain more weight in the records, if you like. And so, if something is looping as a trauma, as an understanding, as an anger, again, if we go back to the emotional scale, the fear, the shame, the anger, the apathy, these kind of heavier emotions, they weigh heavier. And then the more the more we repeat it, let's admit it, who's done it? Something has happened. We've been wronged. It loops in our brain. Oh, how dare they? And I reacted, and how could I? And I feel so bad, and loopy, loopy, loopy. And then we phone our friend and we're like, hey, this awful thing happened. And then we're rewriting it. The records don't care. There's no judgment. They just blah, 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 score, 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 score. Um, and now suddenly what happened in one thing, we've got 3 chapters of a Harry Potter series, right? Like that's about how much room my Harry Potter books take up on the bookshelf, right? Or my Outlander books. Oh my God, think about this room. Okay. So we play it out again and again and again. So what happens when we can go back into the records is we when we go back with this frequency of acceptance, understanding, healing, guidance, we go back in there and we're like, hey, this is what happened. This is the thing, and this is the lesson, and this is the gold of what happened in there. Like I can see that this, for whatever reason, needed to happen, right? All of this other stuff that I've now wrapped around in shrouds of shame and fear and being wronged and whatever, that I've now created contracts of that gone, I will never love again, right? Or power is not safe in my hands, or money is bad and it makes everyone evil, or like nobody listens to me ever. I am never going to put my head above that parapet ever again, or whatever it is that we've decided because of that thing that's happened. We can go back in it. And what we're doing is we're kind of unwinding the energy. So it's not so much about changing it. Like for me, I'm not one to just rub that off and go, nah, let's pretend it didn't happen. Because chances are there's, we need, life isn't all about sunshine and rainbows, right? Because even with rainbows, we need to have the rain, right? Like we're here to experience, we're here to have the human experience, and we're here to go through all of those emotions. By the way, if you don't know the emotional scale, do look it up. Look up Dr. David Hawkins. some of the best reading that will help you understand a lot about the human condition, trauma, healing, the law of attraction. Like it explains a lot, and we do a lot of work in that in Soul School. So we go back in, and when we come in as Akashic Records guides, we become the Akashic Records guides. And so we're holding this, and this is what happened. And then all of that energy that sits around it begins to unravel. And so now, rather than having to, and it is a compulsion, act from that heaviness because, oh my God, if I don't do this, I might die, is the story. Yeah. It comes from, oh, okay, so this happened, and this was the decision I made about myself. Now what? Now, how do I learn and grow from that? Now, who do I become from that? Now, how do I use that to become better? Now, how do I understand what happened to me to bring compassion, understanding, non-judgment to somebody else? And the more we hold that, knowing that we're always doing the best we can with what we've got, and knowing that I have been the light and the dark, the up and the down, the good and the bad, the him and the her, and all of the bits in between. Well, now I'm going to show up differently. Now we've heard of shadow work and projection, probably many of us, that of what we think of others, we think of ourselves. Well, as we think of others, it's just scoring in our records. It doesn't care if it's thinking about you or me or anyone else. So the more compassion that we hold for other people, guess what? The more compassion we have for self. It starts to change everything of who we are as a human. And what it does practically is it gives us a lot more clarity. Because as many of you identified when we were speaking in the Telegram group, when I asked you, what would you ask? And then I asked you, how would that change how you think, how you feel, and how you act? You all knew. All of you said something along the lines of, well, I'd be more at peace, or I'd be clearer. I'd be more compassionate. I'd be more understanding. I'd be more sure of myself. And when we're sure of ourselves, we just show up differently. And people feel that. People then respond to you differently. And then we can be acting from that higher version of us because we have all of these versions of us, and none of them are good or bad or better or best. They're all there, and they're all there for a reason. Through my psychotherapy training, I'm fully on board with that. And there is always somewhere this higher option. And for me, and actually for many of the people who have just come through Soul School, like this is one of the like massive changes that happens is I have more clarity, I have more surety. And so then when I'm making a decision, then when I'm helping somebody else, then when I'm wondering about my own healing and my own path, I'm moving from a higher version wisdom of myself. I'm coming from that space of like altruism, yeah, being kind, being one, of doing this not just for me, but for you and for all. This is one of the fundamental lessons that I have learned in the records. And all, we hear we are all one. And you're like, yes, but are we all one? Because I'm definitely here. And I can see Sophie over there, and she's definitely there, and she's not here in this space, and I'm over here, and there must be. How is this even possible? When we go into the records, we begin to understand we're all one. Because whilst it's not a space of our past lives, guess what? It contains all of our incarnations. And I think it contains more than our incarnations. I think it contains the frequency and the memory of our DNA, of our ancestry. And how many of us, somehow, if we go far back enough, are we related? Which, by the way, does explain partly for me why like so many people think they were either Cleopatra, one of the 12 apostles, Jesus Christ, or one of the other things that everyone thinks that they were in a past life, the Oracle of Delphi. It happens a lot, and there's again, there's a whole nother theory around that, but we contain these imprints and they're feeding us in different ways. The question is, am I, oh, I'm going there. If I was Jesus Christ in a past life, am I acting from the crucifixion or am I acting from the space of like forgiveness and enlightenment? Because that's the fundamental. We all have light and dark in our lives, and we all have these different experiences in our lives. But how is it affecting us now? And how is that then guiding us? I'm just going to come back and read this. I will not tell you the sun will always shine, but you'll always be warm again. And that is a very different thing. I love that. Okay. Please do. I've just told you a lot. I had some notes. They, I don't know. I'm like, the notes are there, I'm over here, but it's all good. That's supported by neurobiology. The human brain can't distinguish between self and others. Like when you show love to yourself, your brain registers it as you are loved. No distinction between it and being you. Oh, thank you, Asia, for doing that. Okay. Now, here's what's very interesting. So I mentioned about the guides, the lords, the masters, teachers. There's only so much they can do. And their job for a long time was just to hold the sacredness of this space, almost to protect it. And in the background, do things like, as I, start learning on something, or as I start progressing. This saying of as the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? And things like these kind of these knowings that we have, that I see this in the records as this giant web, that as I then rise, somebody feels that on the other end of the web and they're like, oh. And at the same time, as I put out a wish into the universe and I'm like, I wish that this, or I wish somebody would help me or whatever, then somebody who is in that position to help me, they feel this. And if they rise and I rise, then somehow, like as if by magic, like all of you here today, some of you we have just met, somehow we're just in a space together. We felt it. We felt that resonance, and we're coming here. It took us both stepping up. It took us both saying yes. It took us both coming from that higher consciousness. That doesn't mean if we act from our lower consciousness, nothing will ever happen, because it will, because there's always that opportunity. It's not like that time has passed, it's never going to come. However, the more, and I can tell you this definitely from my experience, the more we come into that higher version of ourselves, the more we act from that, the more we say yes to that, then those synchronicities, those opportunities, those learnings, those growth, those connections, they all just happen quicker. And more people do it. Like the amount of times I've done something and I mean, like, what on earth am I doing? But I'm saying yes anyway. And then somebody messages me like, Mel, when you did that, that's given me the courage. I'm like, yes. As we heal, we don't heal alone. Okay. I see the map of consciousness is there. So this is incredible. So the guides who have always been there just to hold that and to help do this work behind the scenes, something nuts happened in a journey I was doing recently. So I'm in the space with my guidance team, and I'm in this room, and in the room I see these pictures, like in Dumbledore's office. And if you've seen Harry Potter, if you haven't, I'm sorry, but with all the and the moving heads, right, of all the past headmasters. So like here we have like all of these guides. And what they shared with me was this, that there's only that they do brilliant work. So no one's taking anything away from them. But it's like this. Actually, what they said to me is we're recruiting. That's what they said to me. We're recruiting. Because what's happening as the consciousness rises is the humans now actually have an opportunity to walk this path with the sacredness that they hold so that we can essentially help change the consciousness. So breathe into that. Because if you're here, chances are no pressure. I'm like, I am shivering. Like my legs are like this. Chances are is that you are here to help change consciousness in one way or another. It's huge. It is huge. Oh, you're crying. Just breathe into that. Just take that in. Because, this calling isn't for everybody. And it's not meant to be for everybody. And something that I've learned about the opening of the records, it very much depends very much on intention, but not just on intention. It's the energy behind the intention, right? It is more than that. It goes bigger than that. And so they're recruiting so that you can swear, yes. Um, just not out loud, in case there's any children around. Mine are not around. Um, where I really do believe that we're at this point in humanity where there's this big pivot, and we're feeling it, right? Like I think I can say it in this space, although I do know we're live on Facebook too. Um, that we're no longer kind of just listening to what we're told. Anyone else? We're thinking, many of us are thinking differently. We're wanting to make changes. We're wanting to evolve. And this whole thing of like dog eat dog and like life's competition and being pitted against each other and all of this stuff, whilst it's real and it's there and we've been conditioned into this space, like many of us are like, we don't want that anymore. It's like as we rise together. Like this seems to be this new way of being. And so the record, yeah, the records are evolving, and we're evolving, and the records are evolving. I'm not sure which one happened first. Maybe it's happening in tandem. And this invitation of well, please do put whatever you want in the Telegram group. So if you're watching this on Facebook, there is a Telegram group. You have to scroll up my page and you'll find the sign up link. I keep hearing to not feed into the fear. Okay, so this is a really good point. Let me just touch on this before I move on to the notes that I've not looked at. Like a spiral, yes. Um, in every moment, even though what I've just said, the records are no longer just recording. They're no longer just recording, but they are still recording for now anyway, right? And they don't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. They don't know the difference between what's me and you. It just is. The difference is, remember, one line, a thought, one line. Yeah, emotion, more. Action, more, right? Feeling thoughts. So those thoughts that generate feelings, they have like a bigger one, right? And so whatever we are thinking, doing, feeling, like in this moment, whatever's going on in your brain and in your energy field and in your body is being recorded. So the more time we spend in these like high vibe spaces, when we're in this curiosity, when we're in this like, oh my God, I could change the world, that's being recorded in this space. And that is going to start to guide you. Because actually, the past will always guide, but the present is always the most powerful um, guidance system, if you like. Um, there's two ways to influence the future. There's more than that. There's three ways. One is to look into the future, right? This visualization affirmations. guess what? It's because it's recording in the Akashic Records, and it's recording as if it's real with no judgment, and it's going, okay. As I feel what I'm saying in my affirmation, it's going to record it more and accept it more as true. So it's going to become more likely true, which is why they say really feel what you feel and all of this, right? But sometimes that can be a hard work if what's going on in the background's like in opposition. Yeah, I am safe to shine. Last time that happened, you had your head chopped off, for example, right? This thought is gonna win because that was a bigger emotion than this. Unless something happens. You have an epiphany, you have a big healing, something, whatever. So we have two choices, right? We can be in control of our minds, which if you've ever tried to do that, is nigh on impossible. But we can be in control of our minds and really feel into that. So yes, be very present, and yes, be very conscious about what you are writing in your records every moment. Yeah, you can always switch it around. This doesn't mean control your thoughts because I have tried and it's impossible. However, when we go back into this space and unravel it, so it's not so heavy, it's not going, hey, you got your head got cut off, so don't do it in the lifetime. We can take that and go, yes, that's true. And so I'm not going to go and shout that maybe in front of people who, are going to be in massive opposition to this, but I can be in this space and pull in my tribe, right? Be in this space and really, um, we're safer than we've ever been, really. If both real and record and imagine are recorded that way, then what if I lived an event, then fully imagined it in a dozen different ways? The thought that's most prominent is going to be the one that influences you the most, which is why when we do trauma work, we're moving it out of our bodies so it doesn't keep looping, and that we can take that higher guidance. This is literally how um manifestation works. So if you have a thought but deliberately attach no emotion to it, it can pass through as a score and not create a paragraph. Exactly. But how much time do we spend having conscious thought? Like, I was once given this task to do by an old mentor, and she just said to me, just record every single one of your thoughts for 24 hours. It was impossible. But every time I noticed, I did, and I was like, oh my God, my thoughts are nuts. And the awareness of that, guess what, helped me change that. But then what happens is we are working in this space. Remember, the Akashic Records, no judgment, compassion, understanding. We're always doing the best we can with what we've got. As we become guides in this space, as we immerse ourselves in this space, as we become part of this recruitment, this invitation, I'm going to call it that, it feels better for me, this invitation to come in and be in this space, then we are less likely to spiral down into this. We have more access to this higher guidance and understanding. Because remember, as we come into acceptance, it's the spiral up. When we're below acceptance, it's very easy to spiral down. I'm referring to the map of consciousness as well. Our dreams are also recorded, but they're different because we flip out. Maybe our dreams are pulling us into our records, and you're gaining insight. We've certainly had that. It's maybe confident to stand my ground and not follow where others are heading. Energetic NLP can be of help here too. NLP was the first thing that I ever studied. So my grandma was a hypnotherapist, thought field therapist, and NLP master practitioner. She like studied with Richard Bandler, was like the founder of NLP. And I'm like, great. I've heard it from my grandma. And so I knew I was learning this when I was 8. And actually, NLP and the Akashic Records, like when I understood things from the space of the records, it all made sense. Like it all makes sense. The law of attraction, healing, visualizations, affirmations, trauma, right? All of it all made sense for me. The thing when we're working with these different modalities, and I promise you, like I've worked with, I'm a geek, I tell you, as I'm a qualified psychotherapist, spiritual counselor, NLP practitioner, hypnotherapist. Like, I'm not even going to bore you with all of my qualifications. I love it all. Where it all came together for me was in the Akashic Records, because we are then working with this field that comes to the root and that comes to the core. And what is now happening as it's not just recording, as we are able to move into this space as guides, as leaders, as healers, as therapists, as coaches, as mentors, is we're able to go into this space and activate the things that are helping us in our path. For me, like I said, shared right at the beginning, it was my path to becoming a teacher. I had no idea. And the amount of people that say to me, Melissa, you're a teacher. Like, it's, yeah, how could you ever not know you're a teacher? And I'm like, I had no idea. I had like zero idea. Just even when the person that took me through guided me, and she was like, find a life when you're a teacher, I literally in my head went, why when I do that? No idea. But we begin to understand our soul's journey, and then we move back and we start to see this thread of not only who we were, and not only what happened to us that is causing the repeated patterns, the questioning, the like, what if, the desire to help, right? And to want to be more and to want to create a big change in the world. But and all of the things, the abundant wounds, the witch wounds, the way that we show up, the way that we talk, our preferences, our natural skills. You think we've got our skills and our talents and our gifts and our traits and our fears and our challenges and all of these things that make up who we are. The Akashic Records give you the answer. And not only do they give you the answer, they move us into acceptance. And not only do they move us into acceptance, as they help us move so that we can create this thread, so that we can live in our three purposes, which are one, know thyself. Like every spiritual text, know thyself. Who am I? Where am I going? What are my challenges? Where am I moving to? Who am I evolving to? What brings me joy? Like, why am I such a geek? Right? All of this stuff. So the next purpose is, well, how do I use all of this to then become somebody who's going to help somebody else? How does my unique situation then have an impact on other? And then how does that then influence the world? Our three purposes. They're not separate. Know thyself. As the more we know ourselves, the more we become who we were meant to be and born to be. And as we become who we were meant to be and born to be, that thread then vibrates or calls the people that I was meant to help, so that I can help them be who they were meant to be. And as you become more of who you were meant to be, then you help the people that you were. And it's all this just huge web. It just ripples out. And as we do all of that, you imagine all these lights shining up. What happens if I look down on one light to 10 lights to 100 lights to 1,000 lights to 10,000 lights? The whole world lights up. And who wants that? Give me a one. Give me a one if you want the whole world to light up as we know ourselves. Oh, you're reading my book. Thank you. I use a ton of hypnosis and NLP, same. And if you already do NLP work, hypnotherapy work, healing work, which I know many of you do, for me, working in the Akashic Records isn't necessarily a modality on its own, although it can be. For me, one of my passions is not so much of, here's my framework, everybody go and do this. For me, it's like, we're all these unique individuals and we have these unique skills, traits, all the things I just said. When we bring them into this space, something incredible happens. It's like they get supercharged. It's like they come at this at this essence. So now I'm like writing my records from that space. So now I'm impacting this. And by the way, not even touched on really, we can create our future, we can anchor our future from that. But that's a talk for another day. We're going to be here like literally 6 weeks. I'm a 5-1, Olga, and that's all I know. Manny Jen. You're welcome to look at my chart, but that's what I know. NLP is derived from hypnotherapy, right? From Ericksonian hypnosis. So the hypnotherapy that I was trained in as Ericksonian is brilliant. And how does that work? It works through accessing the subconscious. What feeds the subconscious? Who we were, who we are, what we've picked up. So what if we can just get into that space? And the incredible thing is each of us has an Akashic record. And so it doesn't mean that you need to have a certain skill. Like you don't need to be able to see, you don't need to be clairvoyant. Like my main essence in the records is like a knowing. Which is I don't know how I know, I just know I know. Right. We see, we hear, and because each of our records is our own, they work with you. Okay. This has completed your jigsaw. Well, I'm glad. Yay, look how many people we want to change the world. Look how many ones we have here. What made this person the person they are, right? And think about how much understanding that gives. And when somebody's wronged us, what happens then when we come into forgiveness, when we come into understanding, when we come into acceptance, we don't have to like what they did. But what if also we can use that as guidance? You know, question I get a lot about, like, why do I keep repeating the same pattern? It's because somehow we haven't quite derived the lesson from it. So what if we go back and we activate that and we bring that understanding so I don't have to keep learning that same lesson again and again? I like learn the lesson. I've got it. I've got the lesson. And we can do things like work with the karmic field in the Akashic Records. We can work with contracts, these soul contracts that we create, these the chords that we have. All of the work that we do individually, I've not found one yet that doesn't sit in the Akashic Records. I drink and I know. Oh, the visual about the lights made me cry out of joy. Beautiful. Okay. So the difference, this was a question, the difference when we're working the records is we're not just going in for healing's sake. We're going in to help us understand that thread so that we evolve and grow. And then we can clear or rewire, if you like. Oh, here's a good one. Here's a good analogy. We've got all of these books essentially in our records, yeah. Some of them are guidebooks. Some of them are like we're reading for fiction. Some of them are information. Some of them are our blueprint. When we're consciously going in there, we can make that choice. I've read this. I know all about it now. It's no longer going to be my guidebook. Now it's just going to be a reference book. Now I'm going to go in there and go, okay, I know that. And now I know, and I now know I don't need to act that way anymore. And this one, well, now this can be my guidebook because now I know where it is that I'm going. We get very clear about where it is that we want to go and our purpose in this life. And so, again, looking at your questions that came up earlier, it's not just about understanding what happened in the past life. It's understanding what we need to become, what we need to do, what lessons are happening for us so that we become, so that we act, so that we think, so that we feel, so that we share. so that we light up those sparks and then light up the world. Like that is the work that we're doing in this space. And the question becomes less about, well, how do I heal this block? Which we do cover. So in Soul School, which I'm going to speak about in a minute, we do cover the interventions that are available. I love an intervention. And it's not so much about how do I clear this block. It's like, what is this block? Where did it come from? What's it teaching me? What am I understanding from it? And what's on the other side of it? Because the block's not just there just to block you and go, oh, it's there. And there's something in there. And so, how do we understand it? How do we come into that? And what talents, gifts is that activating in order for me to overcome that? Because maybe it's not about releasing the block, maybe it's about activating a strength that will then literally allow you to step over it or smash through it. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe you have the block so that you then have a compassion or an understanding to help others. There's so much more, but I realize that we've been together over an hour now. And so, for those of you who are thinking, I've heard the call, and I know many of you have, and I know it's nuts. And as I experienced when I first went in the records, and I was literally told, Melissa, you will be working in the records. And I literally went, like, if you'd have seen my face, I was like, and so this was some time ago. Though I don't. This was 2016, and a lot has changed, and a lot has moved up from there. Um, but if you're feeling that, then the last 12 months, I've been teaching my very first Akashic Records training. We've had 10 incredible humans come through this training. And I want to share this with you. When I first started that, when I first offered that, it was like I went into the records. I was like, "Is this?" I'd been asked for 3 years to run this training, and I'm like, "I'm not ready. I'm never going to be ready." And there was a kind of gentle push, shove into the space. And over this last 12 months, what's really interesting about teaching is that you learn so much more. And one of the most important things for me is not just about, well, here is this space, because, everyone's talking about the Akashic Records now. And something that's really, and actually one of the things that drove me to launching Soul School was seeing some of the other training that was available. And I'm like, where I sit with this is it's about embodying wisdom. It's about attuning into the space. It's about coming into that acceptance and understanding. And it's about making it accessible to the right people. And that was something that really drove me. And I didn't see that everywhere. And so as we've been moving through this last 12 months together, there's been some incredible what do I call them? Opportunities, insights. And the records have been working very much with me and the students that are in there. And about 3 or 4 months ago, I started to get, no, it was a bit longer than that. In the summer, I started to get these visions, if you like. And I wasn't quite sure what it was at first, but the more I went into it, the more expressive they were becoming. Anyway, to cut a long story short, about 2 months ago, 2 to 3 months ago, I received a whole download, if you like, which was an attunement into the Akashic Records. Now, I don't think you need to be attuned to be in the records. But what came was this. I do a lot of work with Reiki and the Holy Fire Reiki, and obviously I've been doing a lot of work with the Akashic Records. What was received was this attunement to essentially become one of these guides. And it blew me away. And I presented that attunement to my 10 students who received it a month ago. And the feedback's been nuts. It's been like they've been doing hands-on healing with it. They're going quicker into the records. It's been like mind-blowingly crazy. And why I'm sharing this with you is because it's completely, not completely, it's really influenced how I'm teaching Soul School over these next 6 months. So this is my invitation to you. If you have been feeling the call, if you're like, the Akashic Records feel like there's something that those little lights that maybe you're here and it's because you've heard that recruitment call. And my feeling is that this attunement, this thing that came through gives us this specific healing aspect to it. And maybe you are here because you heard that. And if that's true for you, the invitation to you is to come and join us in Soul School. So Soul School is my 6-month Akashic Records practitioner training. It is open to you if you are already in some form of energetic therapeutic field. So maybe you're Reiki trained, maybe you've done some like angelic Reiki, some work like that. You've done, if you're not there, reach out to me because I've got another option that will be available to you. But for this, you've been through something. Reiki, therapy, maybe quantum healing, angelic, something like that. And I will be guiding you with a small cohort of incredible humans. There's already a number of you here, and I see some of you here. Say hello. And we will be journeying together, not just how to become healers, not just how to become guides, not just I am an Akashic record practitioner, but also this true embodiment, this alignment into the records. Because what it did for me was so much more than creating a really solid client practice and a really solid set of healing skills. What it did for me was way more than that. And I think that the reason why I keep getting gifted some incredible wisdom and healing from the records is because of that. It's this embodiment of the work that we're doing. So this 6 months is as much about you gaining your own clarity, you connecting in with that higher aspect of you so that you can keep on making those higher level decisions, so that you're coming less, or you're unraveling those things that are keeping you in fear and in doubt and in shame and in confusion and in what if and in all these things that, the beautiful human experience is. And coming more into this, I know who I am, I know how I serve, and I know what I'm becoming. Part of that will be through the attunement and the activations that you will be going through in there. And you will be receiving some incredible interventions and techniques and tools so that you can do that, not just for you, but for your clients. So that you can really come into this knowing of who you are as a healer, therapist, guide. Because for me, if you've seen any of the stuff that I've been putting out on my socials recently, like I really feel like I'm on a mission. And I feel like the spiritual industry, or the wellness industry, the spiritual space is the key to the well-being of the world. And it starts with us. And I know this feels massive. And trust me, 8 years ago, goodness me, 8 years ago, it was like the biggest thing. And 12 months ago, when I launched Soul School, it was about 14 months ago when I launched this round, it was like the biggest thing. And now, as I've seen this progression, I'm like, wow, there's something else happening. And this vision that I had when I was in the records, which was these Dumbledore pictures, what they showed me was is that there's the guides. I saw the people that have been in my world for the last 12 months working in Soul School with me. And I started to see these other faces, and there was these like empty these empty frames, and I was like, oh my God. And they literally said to me, Melissa, you're recruiting. I'm like, oh, I'm finally in recruitment. I think there was about 2 weeks of my life that I'm like, I want to get in there, but it never happened. But now it's happening. And I started to see these faces come in and come through. And what that showed me, that web that I said about, where these things light up, it was like I could see them vibrating, and I didn't know who they were. And actually, as I was promoting this container, the Into the Akash, I literally announced it a week ago. I think it was like 10 days ago. I've not been putting it out loads, and like 120, 30 or so of you heard that. And then however many of you are here tonight watching either here on Zoom or on Facebook have somehow heard this. And there's 90 or so of you in the Telegram group, and you've heard this. And I know it feels really massive, because it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is massive. And it's because the records, the guides, the keepers have been putting out these signals. And if you found yourself here, it could be in another 12 months that you find yourself here and you're sharing your own wisdom and you're sharing your own guidance. Because my philosophy as a teacher, as a guide, is always anyone who's in my world. I'm very generous with my knowledge. I'm very generous with my wisdom. I've been blessed to have teachers that have always been very generous with me. So it's a strong one of my values. And what I want is for you to become the next guides, healers, masters, whatever it is that feels good for you, so that you can go out and do this work. Because whatever will I have in the world, I cannot do this on my own. And I feel like I've been given this gift and this responsibility to come out and to share and to bring this wisdom into the world. It's a big, I'm just typing. I'm going to pop the link in here. The places are fairly limited, but I do trust that the right people will come in. And what I am also doing, and this is just for the people that are watching, so if you're hearing this, this is just for you and the people in the Telegram group. I really want to give you like the best start possible for this. And I was thinking about what kind of extras I can do for those that are going to come and take quick action and feel the call and say yes. I am basically I'm doing like a pick your own bonus. Well, it's not a pick your own bonus. Like I'm gonna individually, as people come into this space, offer you something on top if you join us by Sunday, because the container is open in the space, and I'm in that chamber that I saw with all of the picture frames. They're starting to go, and what happens, is that not working? Hold on. Oh, one moment. Soul School. Thank you, Suzanne, for that. I'm getting there. Okay, here we go. I've got it. I've got it. I've got it. Oh, you're very kind, Asia. Thank you. There it is again. Thank you. I'm looking for a new assistant. Thank you. What's happening? So as you know, when I was working into this Akash, some people have said that they felt this thing. And so I'm opening the record, because not only do the humans have space, so do your businesses, and so do, these containers that we're in. Sophie, can you pop it in the chat, please? Oh, you raise your hand for assistant, or message me at the end. so working in the records isn't just about who we are as a human. Like we can do a whole load of magic in there, and my philosophy and the way that I teach is really to help you become one of those guides. So this is not, and I tell you, I've done many of the trainings and I've been in the trainings. It's not just a how to step by step. You get the understanding, you get the interventions, you understand how to safely move in and out of the records. And we start to speak about how you can work with it for your business. Because I want this to come out there, and you can, and I see it and I live it, create some highly abundant and successful businesses that are doing incredible work. And this is part of this, how we're going to help heal the spiritual industry and the wellness industry as a whole. This is part of it. But as we're doing this work, as we're really launching and being in the records and becoming a guide, they're recruiting because they can't do this work like as etheric beings. They need us humans to go, to step it, to walk this path, to speak its wisdom, to share its knowledge. And if you are hearing this, then you're invited to come and join. Now, I know it's a big move. So I've opened my diary between now and Sunday. If anyone wants to chat with me, jump on a call, just go on Messenger or whatever, just send me a DM on Telegram or on Facebook is probably the easiest. And if you've got any questions, you want to ask anything, we can do that. Anyone that joins, I've got some extra goodies as well to give you that support. So depending what you need, and I'll fill into that. But there's some really good goodies in there as well. So that's available for you until Sunday. Before I look at this, I've been 90 minutes. Let's just celebrate. I've got a time mastery spray here. Let's just celebrate that because I've gone completely off my notes. And, you know, it's been 90 minutes. But if you have any questions specifically about Soul School that you want me to answer now, then pop them in the chat. And if there's anything that you really want me to answer before we close for the evening, then we can do that. And just put them in there. While you're doing that, tomorrow we have another call. So tomorrow's call, I am not going to stream live. Tomorrow's call is just going to be here on Zoom. Because tomorrow I'm taking you on a journey. We're going to go into the Akashic Records together here on Zoom. So do come along live if you can. It'll probably be about the same amount of time. It probably be around 90 minutes that we'll be together all together, maybe a little less. And we're going to be moving into the space so that you can have your own experience. And in the Telegram group, if you're in there, I'm going to be putting some other questions in there. Those questions are working with your records. So they're there and they are very specific for a very specific reason. So I encourage you to answer the questions. If you haven't already, the questions 1 and 2 that are in there, they're working with what you're doing, and you will start already to gain answers and insight, because this is how the records work. They're not as elusive as they used to be. And so I really want you to have this experience and to feel what it feels like to actually be in this space. You're very welcome. So come and join me in the Telegram group. Also in the group, just pop your experiences, what you got from here. I'll ask a question in there so you can use that thread. Do make sure that you are in there and that you feedback, because we're creating this energetic container in there. Soul School is now open. The link is there. I will make sure it's in the Facebook group if you're in there, and I will put it in the Telegram group as well. If you have any questions specifically, if you're like, I don't know if it's for me, reach out to me. I'm available. It's getting late tonight, but I'll answer any questions if they come through quick. Otherwise, back tomorrow morning. So I just want to say thank you all for being here. It's such an honor to be in this space for you. I hope you've learned lots. You've heard the call. And I look forward to hearing from some of you soon and for seeing you all in the group later and tomorrow. Best wishes to you all. Bye for now.